Hello Americans channel. This video is made by free videos from Storyblocks, and these images and video we use just for explanation, and it's free use also.
As the rusty garage door slowly creaked open, Mindy's heart raced, and her eyes widened in sheer disbelief at the scene unfolding before her. What she saw inside left her utterly stunned, shaking the very foundation of everything she thought she knew about Uncle Greg. Uncle Greg had always been a bit unusual, with his quirky habits and odd preferences, but there was one thing that stood out more than anything else: his adamant rule that no one was ever to open the old garage. For years, this rule had piqued Mindy's curiosity, making her wonder what on earth he was hiding in there. She recalled the time from her childhood when her curiosity had led her toward the garage. She could still hear her uncle's frantic voice urgently shouting for her to stay away. At the time, she hadn't understood the reason for his intense reaction. Uncle told the family never to open his old garage. What they discovered inside was bizarre. But now, as she stood in the dimly lit room filled with incriminating evidence and clues, she realized that nothing could have prepared her for the unsettling truth. The garage, once a place of mysterious secrecy, had revealed itself as the heart of her uncle's hidden truth, something she could never have imagined during those innocent years. Uncle Greg was the kind of uncle everyone loved having at dinners and parties. His infectious energy made any gathering more fun, and he was always the life of the party. He embraced life with joy, making every moment special for those around him. Sadly, life wasn't as kind to him. At just 65, Greg was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive cancer, and doctors gave him only a few years to live. This devastating news was a harsh contrast to his lively spirit and left his family and friends heartbroken. His life took a sudden and drastic turn, but he made every effort to conceal the pain he was going through. His friends and family, deeply concerned, pleaded with him to seek treatment or at least consider taking medication that could prolong his life. However, he refused their advice. He couldn't bear the thought of losing the parts of himself that made him who he was. After receiving his diagnosis, he became increasingly reclusive. The vibrant man they once knew seemed to withdraw from the world, spending most of his time at home, absorbed in tasks that kept him away from those who cared about him. His loved ones saw him less and less as he distanced himself in the months that followed, choosing to cope with his illness on his own terms. All his friends and family could do was offer their support. They realized that arguing with him wouldn't help, and they accepted that. One morning, his niece Mindy felt it had been far too long since she'd seen her uncle. On a whim, she decided to stop by his house before heading to school. Since his place was already on her route, she figured there was no need to mention it to her mother. It was just a quick visit after all. She couldn't quite explain it, but her heart was pounding as she made her way up the driveway to his house. A troubling thought crept into her mind. What if something would have happened to him, and he was lying somewhere inside, unnoticed and alone? The idea sent a shiver down her spine, filling her with a mix of fear and urgency. As unsettling as it was, this thought also spurred her to press the doorbell. She couldn't stand the idea of her dear uncle lying there, unknown to anyone, his absence unnoticed. The mere thought of it was unbearable, and she knew she had to find out if he was all right. Fortunately, the moment she rang the doorbell, she heard some noises coming from the garage. Curious, she made her way over to the garage door and crouched down to open it. Just as she was about to lift it, she was startled by a voice yelling at her from behind. "Stop! Get away!" her uncle shouted as he hurried over to her. "What are you doing here, little one? Shouldn't you be at school?" Mindy was excited to see her uncle, but she felt a bit puzzled when she noticed that she wasn't allowed to open the garage door. She was about to ask him why, but he quickly cut her off. "Don't even think about asking," he said firmly. "Just make sure you and everyone else, including your parents and Uncle Joey, stay away from the garage. It's off limits to all of you." Mindy closed her mouth with a shy smile and shrugged her shoulders, feeling a bit embarrassed. She spent some time chatting with her uncle, enjoying their conversation, but soon she lost track of the time and realized she was running late for school. In a rush, Mindy quickly said her goodbyes, gave her uncle a warm hug, and hurried out the door to make up for lost time. She didn't realize at that moment that this would be the last time she would get to hug her uncle. A few days after Uncle Greg's passing, Mindy's parents gathered her together to share the sad news. The shock and grief hit Mindy hard, just as it did for the rest of her family. Although they had known that this day would come eventually, it didn't make the loss any less heartbreaking. They went through the somber tasks of arranging the funeral and saying their final goodbyes. Yet, amidst all the sorrow and the farewell rituals, Mindy found herself unable to shake a lingering thought that kept circling in her mind. She had mentioned the strange garage to her parents the very day she visited her uncle, but after that, the topic was never brought up again. However, now that her uncle was gone, the mystery of the garage kept resurfacing in her thoughts. She knew that sooner or later the garage had to be opened, and she wanted to be there when it happened. A week had passed since her uncle's death, and Mindy felt that the time had finally come to talk about the garage. She had hesitated to bring it up with her parents earlier because she was concerned it might be too painful for them. Her mother had lost a brother, and Mindy could only imagine how deeply that must have affected her. She didn't want to add to their grief by discussing something that could stir up even more emotion. Now, though, Mindy believed it was the right moment to address the topic and find out more about the mysterious garage. Driven by this persistent curiosity, she finally decided it was time to bring it up with her parents once more. "Mom," she began gently, her voice soft with concern, "do you know what's going to happen to Uncle Greg's house?" She looked at her mother with warm, understanding eyes, hoping to make the conversation a bit easier. Her mother sighed deeply, a look of uncertainty crossing her face. "It's a bit complicated," she said slowly. "Uncle Greg left the house to me and Uncle Joey, but we're still trying to figure out what to do with it." She paused, her gaze distant as she thought back. "The house holds so many memories for us. It's where we grew up, you know. It's hard to think about what to do with it because it means so much to us," she added. Mindy gave her mother a small nod and wrapped her arms around her in a comforting hug. "I really miss him," she murmured. Her voice choked with emotion as a tear slid down her cheek. Her mother held her daughter even more tightly, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I miss him too," she said softly. They remained in each other's embrace for a few moments, sharing their sorrow, until her mother managed a gentle smile and gently wiped away Mindy's tears. That was the last time Mindy spoke about her uncle's house. At least, it was the last time for a few years. A few years down the line, when Mindy was around 17, she chose to ride her bike past her late uncle's house. As she pedaled slowly, she felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. Deciding to take a closer look, she stopped and walked up the familiar driveway. With a sense of bittersweet curiosity, she peered through the windows into the living room. To her surprise, everything seemed just as she remembered it from before. It struck her that after all this time, neither her mother nor Uncle Joey had started clearing out his belongings. The house was still filled with the same old furniture and personal items, untouched and unchanged, even after 2 years had passed. Mindy confronted her mother about the situation, and her mom, looking a bit embarrassed, had her cheeks turn a shade of red. She admitted to her daughter that Mindy was indeed correct. They agreed it was time to take action and planned to tackle the mystery that coming weekend. They also made arrangements for Uncle Joey to join them, so on Saturday they all gathered at Uncle Greg's house, eager to uncover what had been hidden away for so long. As soon as they arrived, Mindy headed straight for the garage door, but her mother quickly stepped in to stop her. "Hold on a second," she said, her voice tinged with hesitation. "He specifically told us not to—" Mindy's brow furrowed in confusion. Was her mother being serious? "What exactly are you saying?" Mindy couldn't understand why they couldn't just go ahead with it. "The garage has to be cleaned out eventually, doesn't it?" she questioned. But her mother remained firm, and so they redirected their efforts to tidying up the living room. Despite their focus on the living room, Mindy's thoughts were consumed by the garage. She felt a growing urge to uncover what was inside, and she was determined to find a way to get in without drawing any attention. The ancient garage door seemed to call out to Mindy with a quiet allure. Its weathered wood, with paint peeling off in patches, concealed mysteries that intrigued her every time she stepped onto Uncle Greg's driveway. As sunlight filtered through, it cast shifting shadows on the door's surface, making her imagine shapes and silhouettes behind it. maybe just tricks of light or perhaps items that had accumulated over the years. Each faint creak and groan from the door heightened her curiosity, intensifying her longing to uncover what lay hidden inside. Her fingers itched to lift the latch and push the door open, driven by an irresistible urge to discover the secrets it held. Every visit to Uncle Greg's house was wrapped in an air of mystery. At family gatherings, there were always hushed whispers about the sealed garage, like a secret melody from the past that no one could quite forget. While many of the family members had managed to push their curiosity aside over the years, Mindy found that her own curiosity only grew stronger. Every time she walked past that old garage, it felt as if it were softly calling out to her, urging her to uncover the secrets hidden within. On a breezy evening, as Mindy stood near the old garage, she felt like she could hear faint, almost ghostly echoes drifting through the air. There were sounds that resembled the rhythmic clinking of a hammer and the distant hum of a song that Uncle Greg might have once sung. Or maybe these sounds were just the products of her overactive imagination. She remembered the days from her childhood when she'd watch her uncle head into the garage. He would spend hours inside, only to emerge with a faraway, contemplative look on his face, as if lost in deep thought. Uncle Greg's house was more than just a collection of bricks and mortar. It was like a living scrapbook, full of memories. Every room seemed to echo with the sounds of laughter, heated discussions, and the many family gatherings that had taken place there over the years. But despite all the memories that filled the house, the garage stood apart, a silent guardian with its secrets tightly locked away. Mindy often noticed her mother gazing wistfully at the garage, her eyes reflecting a blend of longing and sadness. The garage held a special significance, a mystery that seemed to tug at her mother's heart, filled with unspoken stories and hidden pasts. During dinner, Uncle Joey brought up the idea of selling the family home. He proposed that the proceeds from the sale could be given to the local hospital or another charity that was important to Uncle Greg. This suggestion struck a chord with many of the family members, as it seemed like a fitting tribute to honor Uncle Greg's memory. However, for Mindy, the sale of the house would mean that the mystery of the garage would remain forever unsolved. She had always been eager to uncover what lay behind that sealed door, and the thought of losing the chance to explore that hidden chapter of her family's history was deeply unsettling to her. One afternoon, Mindy decided to try once more to enter the garage, but her mother quickly called her back with a sharp tone. "Why can't we just go in?" Mindy asked, her frustration clear in her voice. "What's the big deal? Why is it always off limits?" Uncle Joey let out a long sigh and started rubbing his temples as if trying to ward off a headache. "It's complicated," he muttered quietly, not meeting Mindy's gaze. The way he and her mother avoided eye contact only made Mindy more curious and uneasy. The air was thick with unspoken tension, and it felt like there were secrets lurking in the silence between them. One late night, Mindy was unable to sleep and found herself eavesdropping on a quiet conversation between her mother and Uncle Joey. Words like promise, Greg's wishes, and let it be floated through the air and caught her attention. It quickly became clear to Mindy that there was an unspoken agreement, a solemn promise made to Uncle Greg, which was keeping them from revealing what was inside the garage. Feeling a surge of determination, Mindy resolved to solve the mystery on her own. She was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how challenging it might be. What could be so important in that garage? Every hint and every quiet clue only made Mindy more determined to uncover the truth. She started making plans, looking into ways to get inside without causing any damage, and even considered getting help from others. Her nights were filled with dreams about the garage, while her days were spent thinking obsessively about what might be hidden inside. Each day, Mindy felt more drawn to the mysterious garage. One afternoon, she met her friend Billy at their favorite cafe and shared her growing frustration. Billy, who was a tech expert, leaned in with a curious sparkle in her eye. "There might be a way to get inside without damaging anything," she suggested quietly, taking a sip of her latte. Mindy's eyes lit up with renewed hope. Could Billy have the solution she needed? Billy's room looked like a high-tech lab, packed with gadgets, wires, and screens everywhere. She laid out blueprints of standard garage locks on her desk, highlighting their possible vulnerabilities. With an array of tools at her disposal, from tiny cameras to devices that could disable silent alarms, Billy was prepared for anything. "We need to be smart, stealthy, and quick," she said, as she pointed to their planned entry and exit points on the blueprints. The evening came around more quickly than they expected. Both were dressed in dark, non-reflective clothes and were using earpieces that Billy had specially adjusted for their mission. Mindy had a small bag with her, packed with gloves, a flashlight with a dimming feature, and other necessary items. They understood the risks involved, but were too drawn to the mystery to back out. Standing at the edge of the driveway, the garage loomed ahead, its door looking like a huge barrier guarding the secrets inside. Billy set up her equipment, making sure their route was clear. As they moved closer to the entrance, the seriousness of their mission settled in, their heartbeats matching the quiet buzz of Billy's devices. Taking a deep breath, Mindy reached out, bracing herself to confront whatever was hidden beyond the door. After several hours of effort, they finally succeeded in opening the door. The sound it made as it creaked open was like an old book being opened after ages. When the door swung inward, a faint light revealed an incredible scene that Mindy had never even dreamed of. The door creaked loudly as Mindy and Billy pushed it open. Dust and the musty smell of old wood filled the air. The garage was cluttered with all sorts of things: rusty tools, old furniture, and boxes stacked haphazardly. Mindy and Billy navigated their way through the mess, trying to avoid tripping over the piles of forgotten belongings. After an hour of digging through old fishing rods, dusty newspapers, and broken appliances, Mindy spotted something interesting. Underneath a stack of intricately carved wooden boxes, she noticed a sturdy, unmarked box that seemed out of place. With a surge of excitement, she called Billy over, and together they managed to pull the box out from its hiding spot. The box was old and heavy, its surface covered in years of grime. Mindy opened it carefully, her heart pounding with anticipation. Inside, she found a collection of sealed envelopes, each one marked with different names and dates. The envelopes were neatly arranged as if someone had meticulously planned their placement. Mindy's curiosity only deepened. What could be so important that Uncle Greg had kept it all these years? Billy's eyes widened as she peered over Mindy's shoulder. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Do you think these are important?" Before Mindy could answer, something else caught her eye. Across the room, on a dusty wall, was a large bulletin board covered in photographs and notes. Mindy and Billy approached it, brushing off cobwebs as they went. The board was filled with pictures of various people, gruesome people. Each photo was pinned next to a note with names and scribbled details. Maps with marked locations and timelines were pinned alongside the board. Mindy wondered what Uncle Greg was doing with all these pictures. Was he somehow involved in a crime? Her heart began to race with anxiety. Soon after, she discovered a notepad filled with locations and police information. It was then that it became clear her uncle had been gathering evidence and tracking connections among people involved in serious criminal activities. The room also contained a worn-out journal with handwritten notes and observations, and a few old newspaper clippings highlighting the crimes and suspects he had been studying. Each element painted a picture of a dedicated investigation into a complex and troubling case. The journal detailed her uncle's thoughts and theories about the cases he was investigating. Next to the journal was a collection of old newspaper clippings, each highlighting different crimes and suspects. There were also some old dusty files marked with dates and case numbers, suggesting ongoing research and unresolved questions. The room was a testament to her uncle's dedication, piecing together evidence in a relentless pursuit of truth. The clippings were carefully annotated with her uncle's comments and questions, providing further insight into his investigative process. She knew that their next step had to be telling her mother. Back at home, Mindy and Billy sat down with Mindy's mother, Linda. Mindy explained everything she had found: the box of envelopes, the bulletin board, and the evidence that Uncle Greg had been secretly investigating something important. Linda listened intently, her face growing more concerned with each detail. "I knew your uncle was always up to something mysterious, but I had no idea he was involved in something like this," Linda said, her voice filled with a mixture of worry and awe. We need to take this to the police. They'll know what to do with it. The next morning, Mindy, Billy, and Linda visited the local police station. Mindy handed over the box of envelopes and the photos of the bulletin board to Officer Jenkins, a seasoned detective who had known Uncle Greg. Officer Jenkins examined the materials with great interest. This is quite a find," he said, his eyes scanning the contents. "Looks like your uncle might have been on the trail of something significant. We'll need to investigate further, but this could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." But what did Mindy find? Mindy and Billy watched as Officer Jenkins and his team began their work. It felt surreal to think that their ordinary day had turned into something so extraordinary. Mindy couldn't help but wonder about the stories behind the faces on the bulletin board and the secrets that Uncle Greg had been uncovering. Weeks later, Mindy and Billy learned that the police had made significant progress with the evidence they'd provided. Some of the people Uncle Greg had investigated were involved in a large-scale crime ring, and his work had been instrumental in bringing the criminals to justice. Though it was sad that Uncle Greg hadn't lived to see the resolution, Mindy felt a sense of pride knowing that his efforts hadn't been in vain. As Mindy and Billy sat together, reflecting on their adventure, Mindy realized how much more there was to her uncle than she had ever known. His secret life had been a puzzle she had pieced together, and in doing so, she had uncovered a side of him that was both remarkable and brave. Uncle Greg's tireless dedication proved instrumental in aiding the police to solve several high-profile criminal cases, resulting in the arrest of numerous dangerous individuals. His meticulous and thorough investigations had uncovered intricate links to a vast and sophisticated crime ring. Through his relentless efforts, he provided crucial insights and evidence that helped dismantle this network and bring its members to justice. Despite the profound sadness that Uncle Greg did not live to see the final resolution of these cases, Mindy found solace and a deep sense of pride in the knowledge that his work had not been in vain. The impact of his contributions was far-reaching, and his relentless pursuit of justice was honored posthumously. Uncle Greg was awarded prestigious accolades in recognition of his significant role in solving these major crimes and his unwavering commitment to the cause. The awards were a testament to his extraordinary dedication and the lasting legacy he left behind in the fight against crime. The mystery of the garage had not only brought justice, but also taught Mindy the importance of curiosity and determination. The old garage, once a place of hidden secrets, now held a special place in Mindy's heart, a reminder of the incredible journey she and Billy had embarked on, and the legacy of a man who had dedicated his life to uncovering the truth.